guys, it's Brightcat, and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to walk you guys through my process of taking a comic page from sketch to finished and show you how I do things. Now this is not necessarily a tutorial, so I'm not starting at the very beginning. I already have my page layout set up and ready to go. I'm starting from thumbnail sketches, which I will do my pencils over, then I'll clean up everything with an ink layer before laying down colors and highlights and shading. So let's begin. So first things first, I want to say that this is a commission piece. So these characters are not my characters. This is not my story. This is not my scripting or anything like that. I am given a script to work from. I'm given the dialogue. The only thing I'm really in control of is the artwork itself, with some general direction from my customer. But as you can see here, I'm working into the rough sketch stage. This is where I start laying down more clear details, like expressions, the actual form of the characters, because when I do the thumbnail sketches, I don't worry very much about the anatomy, perspective, or anything like that. The purpose of your thumbnail sketch is to put down the basic idea of what's happening in the scene. So as you can see here, I'm filling in all of the extra details. I make sure that I have the character's reference sheet up right next to my workspace, so that way it helps keep the character's design consistent, as I have a bad habit of not constantly checking the ref sheet. And since this is a person's OC, the details are very important. So one thing I have to keep in mind is, like, I have to keep this character consistent so we know who exactly it is. Make sure all the details are right. You see, I check back and forth with the reference all the time, zooming in and out, color picking later on. But yeah, I just fill in like the character's exact posing. Like on the thumbnail, it's not very clear. The fingers are not very clear. Like, don't get hung up over doing the most insane detailed thumbnail sketches. In fact, if I was doing this for my own personal project, I probably wouldn't even be as detailed as I am with my very rough thumbnail sketches, because I know exactly how I want it to be in my head. But since I'm showing this to a customer, I start with thumbnails that are a little bit more polished. Now, in addition to using a character's reference sheet, I also like to make a lot of use of Clip Studio Paint's built-in 3D model system. And so basically they have posable 3D models that you can use as reference for any character, really. All I have to do is find a 3D reference pose as close to what I want to draw, then make a few additions or tweaks to the pose until I'm happy with it. And that's when I'll basically trace over I guess you could call it like a 3D doll, a 3D model, or pose reference. So that way I don't have to try to do a lot of guesswork and like, how does this arm turn, or how is this leg posed, or what are the proportions of this character. And some people might say it's cheating or whatever. Honestly, I believe what it's doing is saving me a lot of time. Okay, because time is money. This is a commission piece. I don't want to spend overly long on it. Also, because the customer is expecting it in not like 5 months later. Okay. Plus it adds a little bit of, extra polish instead of like something that's a little more wonky looking, for lack of a better term. Like, I have no issue with people using 3D reference for their work. And in fact, if people didn't, why would it be built into the program? Essentially, I don't use it for every single pose. Like, I try to learn anatomy on my own so that way I don't have to like fiddle around with it if I really don't have to or need to. So that occasionally I'll get a little bit hung up on. It's like, oh, I'm not very confident in my human anatomy, but at the same time, I'm not really going to get any better if I don't practice it. That means even if, it might not look exactly up to my personal standards, I'm at least giving it a shot instead of not trying at all. So you see, I kind of fight with how the face looks a bit, do a lot of adjusting, selecting, modifying, trying to get a pose, get a look that I'm at least somewhat happy with. Because finished is better than perfect. Then I'll also adjust the word balloons a bit. Like, I always use this stage of the process to make any little additional changes or even broad changes. Keep in mind, I'm working on top of my thumbnail sketches. Nothing is like set in stone yet. Sometimes I'll stick pretty close to what I have in my thumbnails already. Other times I'll change a pose completely. I'll start brainstorming in the middle of this process and I'm like, oh, I think I might like this pose better for showing this kind of emotion, or tweak this a little bit here or there. But long story short, this is the stage where you want to do that. You don't want to think about doing broad changes like deep into inking or coloring or anything like that. Now, that being said, as a digital artist, I have the advantage in making big changes. Even if it was late into the stage, let's say for argument's sake that the customer wanted a big change. They were like, okay, you know what? I don't think this particular pose or these characters in this camera angle are really working for me. Can you change it? Working digitally, that is a lot easier to do than if I had to do all of this pencil, paper, actual inks, by hand. That would be a much deeper process. So that's kind of, advantage of being a digital artist. But as you can see, I'm basically going from panel to panel. It's the same process through each. I go in, I start filling in the broader form first before I work my way down into the details. Is that they always say to start with your big form, your big poses first before digging into smaller, more accurate and nitty-gritty details. So that's why I always try to remind myself to work from big to small. And so I start zoomed out, then I'm like, okay, now I can start working in on the face. I start working in on the eyes, the expressions. Always keeping the character's model in mind. Do pose adjustments, anything I need to do, really. So as I'm going through and laying down these rough sketches, one thing I try to do is most, if not all, of the quote-unquote problem solving as to where all of the details and everything are going to go. Because when I start inking the image, I don't want to have to keep second guessing a lot of my lines or second guessing a lot of the details. You'll see a little bit of that later on anyway as I ink the image, but that's more so because of my line placements. Sometimes it's hard for me to get a clean, accurate line on the first pass. So I might do a lot of undoing or a lot of erasing or adjusting. But as you'll see later on, when I do start inking the image, I actually use vector layers. And what that allows me to do is manipulate the lines by themselves, like click and drag the line and kind of nudge it into place. But that will be shown a little bit more closely after I get through the rough sketch stage. So jumping ahead here a little bit, I wanted to say that this is one of the things I was talking about how, I'll start brainstorming or I think of a different idea. With this last panel, I wasn't quite happy with how it was at first. I felt like the characters were in a very similar pose to how they were in the 5th panel, and I decided to zoom in quite a bit from where it was initially. I wanted to have a little bit more visual variety than, repeating the same exact pose, the same exact focal length, or same exact composition as the last panels. As that's one thing, is a good thing to keep in mind, is to, even if you have a dialogue heavy scene where it's kind of just talking back and forth like how it is here, you can still keep the scene visually interesting by varying, the camera positions, character poses, close-up shots, or far away shots. It doesn't have to be just, shoulder up, character shot, reverse shot, like the same repetitive thing over and over. Now here I'm getting into inking my panels, and it's really just going in, finalizing those details. You see, as with every digital artist, we sometimes undo, draw the line, undo, draw the line again, undo, try to draw the line again. Eventually just give up, like, that's close enough. I'm going to keep the line as it is. Sometimes I get in a pretty good flow. I don't have to undo too many times, or if I do, it is what it is. Like I said, sometimes it's hard to get that exact precision stroke by doing free-handed lines like this. Like, I'm not using the pen tool or any like lasso tools or anything like that. I am using vector, but I'm still using the stylus to draw all of my vector lines. And the reason why I use vector instead of raster for my inking layer is because, number one, it allows cleanup to go a lot faster. I have the eraser set to erase the line up to where it intersects with another line. So if I drew lines that were crossing over one another, it will erase all the way up till it intersects with that line. So I don't have to worry about maybe drawing on a layer beneath and then carefully erasing the pixels so it looks nice and clean. I just have Clip Studio Paint make that kind of little adjustment for me, so to speak. And then occasionally you might see me like manipulate the lines and go in and readjust instead of having to erase so much, which is a habit I am trying to get myself out of. Like, draw the line, not happy with it, erase. Draw the line, not happy with it, erase. Undo, undo, undo. It's a curse. Trust me, it's a curse, because that slows you down so much. So sometimes I get into a good rhythm. I'm not really undoing so much, but then I get stuck on a particular line and I'm just like really fighting with it. But eventually I got to make that call. Like, you know what? I can't keep undoing and redoing this line. I'm just going to nudge it in place. That's what I'm using vector lines for, so I don't have to redraw it. I can just make a slight adjustment and move it to where I exactly want it to be. That's one of the reasons why I actually enjoy doing my line work this way versus just doing a more typical raster layer. Okay. Now, if you don't know what the difference between vector and raster layers are, I would love to explain it to you in great detail. However, I'm not especially well versed in explaining like the mathematics of it. You know what I mean? Like, I could just show you the difference versus explain the difference, but that's not quite what this video is about. And there are plenty of other videos that will explain in great detail if you care to learn about what the difference between a raster and vector layer is. But I guess if you had to say, the difference is that a vector layer uses like mathematical calculations to display the lines, so you can increase or decrease the size of the lines as needed, and you're not going to get any loss of quality. Like, anybody who's familiar with working in like Adobe Illustrator, programs like that, you don't have to worry about your lines getting all pixelated when you zoom in or zoom out, versus using a raster layer where each pixel is that's what it is. You zoom in on that pixel, it's gonna look pixelated. Like I said, I could probably sit here and come up with a better explanation for it, but honestly, I don't really feel like it at this time. But if you saw there on his glove, I used the pinch tool, which is in Clip Studio Paint. You can pinch your vector lines and like basically click and drag them to where you want them to be. So I'm trying to keep like constantly remind myself, I don't have to undo the line. I don't have to constantly undo it. I can just nudge it into place real quick, start remembering my hotkeys. Like, I don't have to brute force my way through this. I can do shortcuts. I can do things that are easy. Do whatever makes the process easy and efficient. Okay, because at the end of the day, your time is precious. Okay? Even if you're just drawing for pleasure's sake. Like, unless you really want to spend a lot of extra time on your picture, even so, you don't have to spend it on doing processes that just waste your time. Find easier ways of doing things. Find the shortcuts. Make the recorded macros and things like that. You click a button, it does the process for you. Okay, those are things I'm trying to constantly remind myself. And you'll see me use some recorded actions later on. Like, I have a few, I only have 2, but they create layers with certain settings that I like to use for my shading. So instead of me having to go through each step of creating the layer, putting the color and contrast settings that I want for it, it automatically does those steps for me because I had set it up beforehand. So as you can see here, I'm starting to apply the colors. Another cool thing about using vector layers in Clip Studio Paint is that I can tell the paint bucket tool to go up to the edge of the vector line. So what that means is I can just automatically use bucket fill for the different areas and colors and not have to basically select that area, then fill it by hand. It's like I can just automatically use the line art as the guide itself. The colors are all on their own layers. Like, the colors for the bird character, they're all on one layer, and the colors for the human Amaterasu character, all the colors for her are on a separate layer. So I try to keep as few layers for colors as possible, because if I already have like 5, 6, 7 layers per folder, and once I start going above that, it gets a little bit too much, because this is not like an illustration where it's like just one picture. This is 6 illustrations in one picture. So if each one had a whole bunch of different layers for each little thing, that would honestly get pretty overwhelming to me. And I don't know about y'all, but I've accidentally drawn on the wrong layer, colored on the wrong layer. done all XYZ on the wrong layers before, and I want to minimize that as much as I can. But it's very, very fast to just start throwing down the flat colors. Sometimes I'll jump back to a previous page that I've done to do some color picking. Like, I kind of don't have any reference for the background other than what I drew before, so I have to pull up a previous page in order to, okay, let me try to recreate this background real quick. Now, I know I talk about doing things a quick and easy way. One thing I could have done is made basically like a brush to simulate these cage bars and just like click and drag them across, but I kind of really didn't feel like being bothered with making a whole new brush for this particular purpose. So basically, I'm just continuing on here, adding in the background layers, the background colors, fixing up any little mistakes that the paint bucket fills might have left behind. Now, this is a little bit of a time saver right here. I'm not going to call it a cheat because you do what you got to do. I basically just copy and pasted the first panel's background, and I used it to kind of fill in the fifth panel's background and just kind of doctored it up a little bit so it looks decent. I mean, it's the exact same camera angle, exact same shot, so there's absolutely no point in drawing the whole thing again from scratch. So I keep adding the jail cell bars. I changed how the lock looks from my initial drawing. I just decided that on a whim, as you do. You know, add in a nice chain with a chain brush that came in a brush pack that I downloaded a while ago. If you can find brushes that make drawing certain patterns a lot easier, just do that. Just do that. So as you can see here on this human, if any of you guys are familiar with the video game Okami, this is a human version of the main character, Okami Amaterasu. I had to figure out what her patterns are supposed to be because I do not have a ref sheet for her in particular, so I basically just have how I drew her on the previous page. Her face, I'm not entirely pleased with on the earlier page, but like I said before, finished is better than perfect. I'm not going to keep fighting with it. So now that once her detailing is complete, I start going in and adding in the basic shadows for the panels, and then after that I will go in and add a darker shadow because I want the scene to look a bit darker, like there's a more prominent light source. And then I just erase away the areas where light would be hitting the characters. And I have all of this on just a handful of layers. Like, I try to keep it as simple as I can per panel, so I'm not, you know, jumping forth between a whole bunch of different layers and getting confused, because I'm also not gonna sit here and name every single one. That's too much extra work. Listen, if you can work smarter, not harder, okay? So jumping ahead a little bit here, I'm adding in a little bit of extra details, something to make the panel pop a little bit more, to show that I know it's probably a little bit difficult to see. He is clenching his fist in, like, you know, that angry sort of way. But yeah, basically the page is more or less done. I've got all the coloring, shading, highlighting, and stuff like that complete. So I'm giving it a few more lookovers, panning up and down a little bit, trying to make sure if there was anything I missed or not. And that's it. Here's the completed page in all of its glory. Now it's, nothing terribly complex or especially well drawn, but there it is. I think this page took me, I want to say, just under 6.5 hours to complete. And the only way I know this time around is because I recorded myself drawing the image, so I have a better idea of approximately how long it took me to complete this page. Now, there's not a lot of complex background or anything that made it take less time. It primarily just focused on the characters in their dialogue. So it was not the fastest page I've done so far, but definitely not the slowest. I think the first 2 pages certainly took a lot more time than this one. Maybe I'll show those later on. But either way, I am enjoying this project. I'm glad I was given this to do. I'm also using this as a means of practicing my comic making prowess. I'm really trying hard to get better at my craft, making sure that the characters at least look decent and all that good stuff. So I'm gonna end it here for now, guys. I want to thank you guys also for stopping by, and I hope that you all have a very good holiday season this year and a happy new year. So till next time, take care. Whatever y'all get into, I hope it goes well for you, and I'll catch y'all here next time. Later.